Hi, I'm Garm1, and this is Midgardia's cool crowdfunding show. I'm here today with Matatabi. How's it going?
Hi, it's going great.
You're here today to tell us about Floria. So why don't you tell us a little?
Absolutely. Now many of you may have seen our first Kickstarter, Summon Skate, and that went really, really great. We big appreciation to everybody that contributed, and so we're very happy to present our second project. And so this is Floria, and the full title is actually Floria: The Verdant Way. And this project is one that I've been very excited about to work on ever since I first got into indie Japanese tabletop games, because it actually introduced me to the world of indie Japanese tabletop games. I was browsing Amazon.co.jp just looking for interesting TRPG books to pick up, and I found this one. I was like, "Oh man, that art is beautiful! I got to check this one out." And I did some digging and I realized that it wasn't published by one of the big, there's three or four big corporate publishing companies that do a lot of the TRPGs in Japan. And this one was listed as an indie circle. And I was like, what? Like I had no idea that the indie scene even existed in tabletop in Japan. I mean, besides some free stuff on the internet. So, this is one that right from the beginning, it and Summon Skate were kind of my first two targets because they both were just so influential in bringing me into this whole scene. Um, so a little bit of background about this. There is the publishing circle that does it. And I'm going to butcher this name. It's Rokujoma Genso Kukan, which translates to Six Tatami Phantasm Space. I usually shorten it to Phantasm Space, and it was semi named after its original founder, Lord Phantasm. And he is a very big figure in the Japanese indie TRPG scene. Very recognizable. He knows everybody. He's there at all the conventions and things. And recently, he actually got tapped to go into one of the big producers, the big publishers. They picked up one of his indie games and said, "Hey, we will publish this, and we want you to come work for us as an official TRPG creator." So he's kind of one of the big success stories. But he actually, while he was working in Phantasm Space, he actually ended up marrying one of the artists and creators that worked with him, and she actually created this game. Her name is Nekotsuki, and after Lord Phantasm was hired to go pro, she actually took over Phantasm Space, and so she's now running one of the biggest and most popular indie TRPG circles in Japan. And so I think it's really awesome that they have a woman creator was able to take such a important role in the Japanese TRPG scene. I know, regardless of where you are in the world, unfortunately, the representation is not great. In the big names and stuff, and so it's great to see women, coming up and getting the recognition that they deserve. And so that's something that's one of the other big reasons that I think that this is going to be such a big project for us is showing that female representation in Japan in the indie scene is strong. And so I'm really proud to help bring out her work to everybody.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, so that's kind of the background of it. But what actually is Floria, right? So Floria is it is a fantasy adventure role playing game. It's very similar to Ryutama, which is another translated Japanese TRPG, in that it is very focused on the adventure, the journey, the experience of being in a fantastical place. And so a lot of attention is paid to the lore. And so, kind of to explain all of the systems and the world itself, it's easiest just to explain the lore of this world. So, in the world of Floria, there is a font of magic, in the heart of this planet, and the trees and plants and stuff, they extend their roots down so they can drink from this fount of magic. And so the basically the woodland in this world is endless. It's just an endless sea of trees covering the entire planet. And human settlements just exist in kind of the shadows of the trees and between the trees. And one of the side effects of the trees drinking from this fount of magic is that they become magical. And so any plant or tree or mushroom or whatever that draws water from this source becomes known as an herb with capital H. And so Floria are these kind of rangers. They ranger druid kind of characters that they act as mediators between the humans and the woods. And so how you become a Floria is you actually bond with an herb. And and what that means is usually they you eat it, or you take it, and it actually grows inside or on you. And so each of the characters has a magical plant that grows from them that gives them magical powers. And and so Floria's main role is using their magic to make sure that humanity is protected from some of the more dangerous magical plants that live out there, and trying to help human society thrive without infringing too much on the magical forest. And so the whole magic system is actually one of the most unique parts about this game. And how it works is you don't have magic points. When you want to cast a spell, you have to draw diagrams. And some of you who know about Summonscape may be like, wait a minute, isn't that how things worked in the last game? You skated around and made the summoning diagrams and you summoned stuff. Actually, so similar, but also completely different. So the way that it works in Floria is you have what's called a ley vine canvas. So we did a little play on ley lines there. Yeah. And so each character on their character sheet has this grid. And on your both when you start, when you create your character, and on your adventure, you add lines to this grid. You connect and you make different shapes. And instead of magic points, you have shapes. So when you get into battle, you say, okay, well, to cast this spell, I have to pay a triangle or I have to pay a square. And you actually color it in on your canvas. And so at the end of the game, you actually have created a piece of geometric art that's unique each time. And so what this represents in the lore is that the plant that's growing inside of you, the herb that's growing, it has these roots, these vines that extend into your body. And as they form patterns inside your body, they unlock magical powers within you. And so combat, so the enemies as well have their own little, like, each boss and each monster has its own ley vine canvas, because they're all either herbs or monsters created by the herbs, or sometimes it could be even be a natural disaster that you're fighting. But all of them use the same grids, and you actually deal damage doing that as well. It'll be easier to see when we have diagrams and stuff up here, but so when you deal damage, you roll to see where you hit on your enemy's grid. And if you hit a spot that either has a ley vine going through it, or that has been colored in to cast a spell, you deal damage. And so it has it's such a unique system, and folks will be able to see it in action. We'll have a gameplay video up on the very first day of our Kickstarter, so folks that want to see exactly how it works will be able to watch it. But it's just such an interesting idea that each player will go home with basically a custom piece of art that represents their adventure and the fight that they just had. And I think it'll be fun to, like, collect those over time. If you play it a bunch, you'll end up with a bunch of these little geometric art pieces.
Yeah, so the battle system is kind of like halfway between Battleship and like stained glass art. Is that about right?
That is, yeah, exactly. And it's I think there will be a little bit of a learning curve where you're trying to figure out how best to build, I mean, where to draw the lines and stuff to try and be on the safe side while also giving yourself the shapes you need. But I think there's a lot of approaches to it, and I think that the book gives some really good advice on things to remember, like don't cluster too many lines together in the same place, and try and keep your shapes relatively small so they don't get hit easily, things like that. Um, but it encourages you to have fun with it, like use different colored pencils to add different shades and stuff. Um, and so you can really feel how the lore of the world and trying to make this kind of this story about natural beauty and preserving it, and how it translates into, you know, the combat system and your character sheet and everything. And yeah, and so that's kind of the one of the big unique selling points. And then the other is how the actual adventures work, which there is a map, a blank map that you get. It's we'll have an image up, but it's a bunch of squares in a grid that are connected, and this is your magical forest map. And so to represent how the woods are constantly shifting and evolving and changing. Each time you go into them, different paths open, different paths close. And so if you want to GM this, all you got to do is decide where different paths lead on this map. You assign environments to the different places. Different environments create different challenges for the players, and they also make it so that the players can gather different kinds of materials, different kinds of herbs, and you assign different quests to locations. So for the story to progress, you basically say, okay, the players need to make it to square 9, where they will need to do this kind of test that requires this kind of roll. The rolling system is very simple. There are 4 main stats. Each roll takes it is the combination of your 2 scores in, or your scores in 2 stats, and then you roll 2d6, aiming to roll under whatever that is. So if you're trying to do strength and a strength dex roll, if you have 2 strength, 2 dex, you got to roll 2d6 and get under 4. So very simple rolling system, and it's pretty easy for the GM to figure out what the stats should be for each roll. There's not too much difficulty there, and so you just assign these quests. You draw out how the map is going to go, and you're done. Literally, I was able to make my story for the test play in about 15-20 minutes. It just depends on how quickly you can come up with, you know, the NPCs and the actual like motivation for the adventure. But once you're out there, it gets pretty easy.
Yeah.
And so as the player, yeah, sorry.
I was just gonna say, but between the spellcasting system and the dice rolling, this seems like a game that children could very easily pick up. Is that intended? I know this is kind of a sidebar, but
I absolutely think so. I think they might need some help with, you know, drawing the lines out, trying to map out their map. But I absolutely think there's not very I don't know if this goes as a selling point, but there's not a ton of different choices as far as attacks and things like that. It's meant to be very simple. Combat is really not the focus. It's more about the aesthetic of the game. And so the action scenes are meant to be a bit rocket taggy, where you're both just kind of throwing your strongest attacks. And because both you and the enemy have literally a limited space that you can use to cast your spells. And so once you're out, you're out. And so combat is balanced to favor quick cinematic battles. And so I think kids would have a lot of fun with it because there's not so many tactics, not so much to worry about. They throw out their biggest attacks. They have a big showy, flashy cinematic battle, and then it's over. It's more about the journey and going and looking for things in the forest. And I think that they would definitely enjoy that. And the drawing part of it, coloring in the shapes and stuff, yeah, I could definitely see a family getting together around the table for this game, and that's a good point. Um, but so while the characters are exploring the magic woods, each time they end their turn in a space, they can search for an herb. And so there's many different herb tables depending on what the environment is, and each herb they find allows them to add lines to their ley vine canvas. And so each herb has lines assigned to it that, okay, if you get this herb, you can add these lines. And so the more journeying you do, basically, the stronger you will be when you actually get to the end. So the battles are always supposed to be the final climax of the story. When everybody's built up their canvases and they have all their shapes ready to go, then you just throw them all out, and then you have a nice ending. And I love Nekotsuki. She put so many different things in here about for the GM about what to focus on, and she basically says, unlike other role playing games where you may save the world or you may defeat some great evil, in this one your goal may just be to find a scenic view or to find something beautiful, and rather than giving your players, the joy of, oh, you saved the world or oh, you saved the kingdom, you should instill in your players a sense of wonder, a sense of having accomplished something by seeing something new, by experiencing something new. And I think that she has such a beautiful philosophy about this. And I had such a blast translating this because the writing was very poetic. She has a lot of little cute anecdotes in here and stuff that to build the world, and the art is just absolutely gorgeous. Very beautiful anime art, very very beautiful nature and stuff. Um, yeah. Trying to think of. I mean, it's got. If you are a little concerned about being able to put together your own stories, there are I think 3 or 4 sample scenarios that you can use that are very very nice and cover a range of different emotions or emotional stories. And yeah, the Kickstarter. We are actually going to probably start it this weekend, so it might be up about. Probably it might already be up by the time this video goes up. Um, and yeah, so we're hoping to get a lot of support for this. We are doing it a little different from Summonscape. We are actually going to be selling vouchers this time, which means that these are drive-through RPG vouchers, which means that you'll be able to buy the ability to purchase a physical copy at printer's price. And what this does is it allows us to fulfill much more quickly. It means we don't have to gather addresses, we don't have to gather shipping fees or anything like that. It means that you can buy it on your own time, which is good because I know a lot of people last time with Summonscape were saying, "Oh man, payday isn't until whenever, so I can't buy it right now." But this will allow you to pay a little bit now, and then whenever you want to, whenever you've got the money, you can then use the voucher, pay for the printing and shipping, and get your product. And so we think that this is going to be much better for both you and us. To make sure things get fulfilled pretty quickly.
Nice. Yeah, it's a good system. Well, that sounds like a really cool game. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Do you have any questions? I mean, I kind of just rambled on about all the different things, but is there anything in particular you wanted to hear about?
Are there evil Floria?
Yes, there are characters that bond with plants and use their magic for evil, and it's the great thing about how the combat and stuff works is that as long as you make a canvas for it, that's really all there is to monsters and stuff. There are a few stats that you need to put together for monsters, but they're very it's very simple. It's mostly how fast it attacks and how easily its attacks hit. But other than that, because the canvas represents everything that the enemy can do, you're very free in what you choose the enemy to be. I mean, you can stat out an avalanche as easily as you could stat out a human Floria that's gone evil. And so it allows tons of it's very open creatively. It gives you the options are unlimited.
Excellent. Um, I guess the other question I have is, I assume that shapes with more sides can activate more powerful spells. Is that about right?
Yes, yes. So the different shapes you can pay with are triangles, squares, bow ties, which are two triangles touching at the nose, and 5-point stars. And so 5-point stars are usually going to be your um, kind of your final attacks and stuff. Like those are the big spells. And so it's always good to try and aim for making at least one or two star patterns on your lines.
It's too bad we're missing the best shape, the hexagon. But
I know, right? but
sacrifices must be made.
oh, and I will say one of the other things I love about the lore is the races. So you can play a human, of course, a human that is bonded with an herb. You can play a Therian, which is an animal that actually bonded with an herb and gained human intelligence. And they come in all shapes and sizes. Some of them continue kind of acting as animals, walking around on all fours, but they talk. And some of them fully integrate with society. They wear clothes. They act humanoid. And then the third is the dryads, which are basically young herbs that are magically powerful enough to gain human intelligence and want to go on adventures before they put down their deep roots. And so basically, you have these walking plants that can join up with you and become a Floria. And so I think that just the lore of the diversity of the characters is amazing. There is one of my absolute favorite bits of the book is there's a little story about a little lamb that runs away from this farm, and when it comes back, she's a Floria, and she becomes like the pride of the family. There's it used to be their lamb, but now she's an intelligent member of the family that uses magic.
Well, we were gonna eat you, but now you're sentient, so that would be weird.
Yeah, and there's cities and there's a lot of plot hooks and stuff that are laid out in the world building, and so I think a lot of people are going to get lost in this world. They're going to absolutely love it. I'm really hoping that we get some expansions that further delve into the world and its mysteries and stuff. Yeah, and it's great working with Nekotski, and if anybody wants to meet her, her and Lord Phantasm are regulars on our Discord, and they will be happy to hear any feedback over the course of the Kickstarter. I know they're going to be watching it with us. I know for the Summonscape Kickstarter, Yasuda Sensei was awesome. He gave us original art and stuff to cheer us on, and he was loving it. And so I'm hoping that we can get some cheering from Nekotski as well. I think we definitely can. Yeah, but that is Floria. Just show you the beautiful cover one more time.
That is quite excellent.
Yeah, we're super excited.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on again.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we're going to be on more regularly going forward. We've after Summonscape, we learned a lot about how to streamline our projects, and so I think you're going to be seeing a lot of activity from Silvervine Publishing going forward.
I'm glad to hear it. It's really cool to be able to see games from from a different culture, from a different kind of perspective and baseline.
Yeah, absolutely, and I got to tell you, it's tons of fun bringing them over and helping people connect with these creators.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Matatabi, it's been a joy talking to you. For those of you watching at home, go click the link to the Kickstarter. It's right below this video, or it should be. If it's not, please yell at me. And yeah, have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, thanks.